Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. Thank you guys so much for joining class today. Today is the Christmas cookie class. I can't believe it's December already, so we're gonna get in the Christmas spirit today. If we go over to the overhead, I'll show you guys exactly what we're making. All right, so we have an elf cookie, a Rudolph cookie, and a Santa cookie. These are sets, and for the sake of time, I have already covered the second half of the cookies. So like the red, the chocolate or the brown with the texture, and then the green for the bottom. And I'm gonna hope that we can get to that. So we're gonna start with the heads first. So let's go over the supplies. We have water and a food safe paintbrush. This is so that we can adhere the fondant to the cookie and then also adhere the fondant to each other. We have cornstarch. This is to be used very lightly. It's to be used for your surface or if your hands are hot, or if you notice that your fondant's getting a little sticky. I also have Ziploc bags because we are working with our 4-ounce packets, which aren't resealable. So once we open these, we definitely want to make sure that they get wrapped up and sealed tightly so that they don't dry out. I also have dry paper towels and wet towels. If you have access to a sink and soap and water, that's much better, but we are going to be working with vibrant colors today and darker colors. So it's important to keep our hands clean in between working with the different colors. I also have red fondant, green fondant, the dark brown, the black, our peach color, our gold shimmer, and white. I have a circle cutter. Mine, I think, is about 3 to 4 inches, maybe. I'm going by the size of my cookies. So if you have smaller cookies or larger cookies, just kind of take your circle cutters and measure which will cover the most of the cookie. I also have a heart cutter, and I also went by the size of my cookie and the size of the cutter I was using for this. And then I also have 2 small square cutters. This is going to be used for the Santa Claus belt. I have toothpicks, and then I also have like a sharp tool. If you didn't have one of these tools, you could always use a toothpick. This is gonna be used to create the textures on the cookies. I also have scissors to open up the packets, a sharp knife, and of course, pre-baked cookies. You guys don't have to make cookies from scratch. You can get these from your local grocery store. It actually works out really well. Of course, if you wanted custom shapes, you would probably want to make them homemade or from scratch. And yeah, we can get started. If you guys have any questions along the way, please put them in the chat. I'll try to answer them. I'll try to look up here like every now and then Lindsay will also help moderate. She can ask any questions that come through as well. All right, so let's get started with Santa Claus. So we're going to need peach first, and then we'll move on to white and red. So we're going to start with all of the heads first, and we'll see if we have time for the lower half. I'm gonna put all the other colors to the side, and we're going to start with peach first. Oh, I actually realized I don't have my rolling pin. Hold on 1 second. Guys, I will be right back in 1 minute. I have to go get my rolling pin.
This is a good time just to remind you all that the class is being recorded and it will be available within 24 to 48 hours, either on the Michaels website or on Michaels YouTube page. And if you're making along with us today, or even if you make this later, you can use our hashtag so we can see what you make with hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag Michaels Classes. And feel free to put any questions or comments into the chat so we can all see them.
Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry. I thought I had all my tools. I'm like double checking everything, and I forgot the rolling pin out of all things. Okay, so first we're going to start with the peach fondant. I'm going to cut this open, and when fondant is out of the package, It's soft, but it is a little bit on the firmer side. And once we begin to knead it, that's going to help activate the gums, and then we're going to get like the flexible texture of it. I'm going to move this stuff out of the side. So since I opened this, I am going to close this and put it into a Ziploc bag so that it doesn't dry out. When fondant is open, it's already beginning to dry because it's exposed to air. So it's really important to try to work semi-fast and to keep any extra that you have open sealed tightly. So first we're going to begin by kneading the peach fondant. And when I have small amounts, I like to just do it in my hands. If I have a larger amount, I like to do it directly on the surface and use the palm of my hand. Press down, fold over, press down. And we're going to do this until we notice that the fondant is softer, and it will have more stretch to it as well. Try not to use a lot of cornstarch in this process because the more that you use, the more you're going to knead into the product. So we want the less of that amount used because we don't want the product to alter or get dried out. Okay, so my fondant is definitely softer now. You can see I'm able to stretch it. It's more flexible. So I'm going to just roll it into a ball, and I'm going to slightly flatten it a bit to get any air bubbles out. I am going to dust my surface with a little bit of cornstarch. My hands are warmer, so that means that my fondant kind of gets sticky fast. So I'm just going to put a little bit on my surface, and we're going to roll back and forth. Since we are covering cookies, I'm going to roll my fondant probably and more on the thinner side because we are layering pieces as well. But I love using fondant to decorate cookies because I don't have to make royal icing. I don't have to pipe anything. And it's so much easier. And all you have to do is roll it out and cut it out and make different designs. The options with it are endless. So I have this rolled out. I'm going to probably try to show you the thinness. You could see there. And I'm going to take my circle cutter and I'm going to just press down, and I'm going to give it a little twist to really make sure the cutter goes through. If your cutter is like kind of on the duller side, it's not as sharp, this helps. And it also kind of helps get cleaner edges. So if your edges aren't too clean, meaning like you probably can't see on the camera, but if there's little frays of fondant, you can just pick it up, use your finger and press along the sides, and that will definitely clean up the edges. Okay, so now that I have this extra fondant, I'm going to take another bag and put this in there and really make sure the air is out. If you have a lot of extra fondant left over, the shelf life is very long, like months, and you can store it in a bag, and then I would put it in a Tupperware to really make sure it's closed airtight. For now though, since I'm going to be coming back to this, I'm just going to keep it in a Ziploc bag right next to me. So to attach this to the cookie, I like to just use water or an edible glue because the fondant is kind of considered an icing already. I don't want to add any extra sweetness by putting a buttercream or a royal icing onto the cookie. So I'm just going to take a small amount of water and brush the back of the fondant. And then we're going to place this right on the cookie. And then you don't have to press down really hard, just a little bit to make sure that it's adhered to the cookie. Okay. So see how much easier this is than having to use like royal icing or something. You just cut it out and place it on, and you already have a covered cookie. And it tastes delicious. It tastes just like icing. And Satin Ice Fondant is dairy free. So it's vegan, which means there's no egg whites, which I know a lot of royal icings have those too. So next we're going to use the red fondant. Also really nice that all this fondant is pre-colored already, especially with like the reds and the blacks, because that's probably just a nightmare to have to make those really deep colors. So we have the red, I'm going to take a small portion of that out, and I'm going to place this in my other bag that has the other packet of fondant. So again, we're going to begin by kneading this a little bit just to soften it up. And so now for the red, we're going to be using this for the hat. So you'll see there's different layers here. First we do the red, and then we'll move into the white. So I'm just going to dust a little bit of cornstarch again, smooth it out, spread it out a little bit. Probably going to roll the fondant the same amount of thickness, so on the thinner side. You don't want to roll it too thin or else it will begin to get hard to handle and pick up. And we're going to use that same circle cutter. Cut down, give it a twist. So now I have extra red fondant. Put it into another bag, we'll use that again later. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to cover the top portion of the cookie because that's where his hat is going to go. So we want to take off about 1/4 of an inch down. So not halfway, about 1/4 of an inch down, and we'll just cut horizontally across the circle. And then keep this other half to the side. And to do that, I want to make sure that this doesn't dry out. So I'm actually going to just put it on top of one of my Ziploc bags. And actually, I'm going to open the Ziploc bag, put this other half in there gently, and close it because we're going to use that for the other part of the hat, but not yet. And I don't want it to dry out. Okay, so this is the top portion of the hat, and we're going to use a small amount of water. When you're working with more of the vibrant colors, I suggest using a smaller amount of water. You want to make sure that the colors don't begin to bleed. So I'm just going to brush a small amount. And then we're going to place this on the top portion of the cookie. So that other piece of red is going to be used for the top part of the Santa hat, but before we do that, we have to do a layer of white. So we're going to be using the white now, so make sure your hands are clean. I tend to have a lot rub off on my hands because my hands are warmer, like I said. So I'm just using a wet towel to really make sure that color comes off. And I'm also going to give my surface a good wipe too, because we don't want anything getting onto the white. A lot of times,
real quick, Sarah, we did get a question on, do you need to refrigerate the fondant after you open it?
No, you do not need to refrigerate the fondant after you open it. It stays fine room temperature. Just make sure it's sealed airtight. If you were making a topper, you would kind of want to, so if you're making these cookies, you can let them set for like an hour after just to make sure that the fondant does set and that it doesn't get messed up. And then you can put it in a Ziploc bag. You can put it in cellophane bags or Tupperware, and it will stay fresh as long as the cookies stays fresh. But if you're making cupcake toppers and you want to place them on top of buttercream, you want to let those sit out at least 24 hours to really set. They will get a crunch, almost like a sprinkle, and they work perfectly as cupcake toppers on top of frosting. Okay, so now we need the whites. I think I saw another question come through, but I didn't see it in time.
Yeah, someone asked if the fondant is nut-free.
Yes, Satin Ice fondant is gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, kosher. Oh, what else? Let me see. I have my pill right here. So yeah, gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, vegan, and kosher. Oh, the only font, I'm sorry, I have to add to the other question with the fondant going in the refrigerator. The only other fondant that you would probably want to keep in the refrigerator after you open it is the dark brown because that has a different formula and it has chocolate in it. So definitely refrigerate that one after you open it. I'm sorry that I interrupted you.
Oh, no problem. And the last question that we've gotten so far is, does the fondant stay glued to the cookies?
Yes, absolutely. The water acts as an adhesive because once sugar gets wet, it gets sticky. So it adheres perfectly. So don't be scared that something's going to come off. If it does come off, then just add more water and it should stick. If you want to be extra sure that it's going to stick, you can get edible glue as well. Okay, so I just needed the fondant so that it got soft. I'm going to put a small amount of cornstarch. If you don't have cornstarch, you can also use powdered sugar. So again, I'm going to roll this on the thinner side, but not too thin. What's nice about this too is that when you're decorating the cookies, you can move at a faster pace. You don't have to wait for layers to dry before layering other items as well. So fondant is really, really good for decorating cookies. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm wiping off the bottom edge of my cutter because I did use it with the red before. So I just want to make sure there's no residue of that color before I cut the white. So I'm going to cut a circle of the white, press down, give it a twist. Put my white fondant in the bag. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cut a horizontal rectangle from this. The reason why I cut the circle is so that I have the same width the whole time when we're doing this cookie. I don't have to guess. So now I'm going to just make a cut horizontally across in the middle so that I can get a rectangle. And the rectangle is going to probably be around an inch width, like thick, or inch and a half maybe. And this is actually going to be the white fluffy part on the Santa hat. So I'm just gently cutting across with my knife. And then these extras we can put back into the bag because we can reuse those. Okay, so now taking a small amount of water. If you want with your water, you can also keep one of your towels next to you, and you can always dab it on the towel to get rid of any excess to make sure that you don't put too much on the cookie. I'm going to actually put the water straight onto this piece of fondant. I'm just putting enough so that it gets tacky. And I'm going to layer this halfway onto the red hat and then halfway onto the face. And we're going to press this down. You can make it fit better however you want. Remember, we still have to add the beard and the face of the Santa, so I don't want to take up too much room down there. So this is on now, and now this is where the fun part, but the time-consuming part comes in. We're going to make the fuzzy texture on the hat, and it's really easy to do. I like to show ways of some techniques that you can use with things that you have in your house, like toothpicks. You can definitely get this technique if you have like a knit style silicone mold. Those are always fun, or like an impression mat. But if you don't have that, you can do the job just by using a toothpick and just pressing down quickly and poking it. There's no right or wrong to do this. Like the messier, the better, because you'll get more texture and it will look fuzzy. So I'm just quickly doing this. And if you notice that the white fondant is starting to spread a little bit when you do this, you can manipulate it back to the shape of more of a narrow rectangle if you need to. When you are doing this part, it's important to do this right after you put this on the cookie because, like I said, the fondant is starting to set right away, right as it's exposed to air, and we won't be able to do this texture once the fondant is set.
Can you use edible sparkles on the fondant?
Yes, you can. A lot of people use like a luster dust and they'll just brush it on. But today we're going to be using the Shimmer fondant, and you're going to be amazed because you won't even have to use edible glitter. So you won't have to deal with like any of the messy powders. We're going to be using the gold Shimmer fondant, and we use that on the antlers here. I'm trying to see if you can see the shimmer. It's actually incredible, and you can also mix it with all the other satinized colors to get shimmer in any shade. So if you wanted to, there's also, it comes in silver, pearl, and gold. So if you wanted to for these, you could mix the pearl. You could use the pearl as the white. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so my texture is done. So now it's time to do the other part of the hat. So I'm going to take out the piece that we had before out of my bag. It's still soft, which is good. And for this part, we're going to make, we need like a shape that starts from the top. We need the round top of the circle still. So we're just going to make a slanted cut from the top. And I'm just going to plan it out for a second with my knife by scoring it. And then that looks good. So now I'm going to make my cut. That's another recommendation. Before you make your final cut, kind of just like lightly go over it with your knife so that you're confident that you're making the exact cut that you want. So now that we have this, this is going to be the top of the hat, and we're going to end up putting it here so that the edges line up with the top edge of the hat. Do need some water. Sometimes the fondant will be adhesive enough if your hands are warm that you don't even need to add water to adhere it, but it's probably always good to use some water so that it really stays on. And then we still have to add the beard down here, and we're going to add the pom-pom. So I'm going to actually cut off the tip of that, and we're going to cover that part up anyway with the pom-pom. So I just cut that extra tip off. Okay, the rest of our red fondant, we can add it to the other scraps that we have. And I'm going to take the white out again. And so now for the white, we're going to be making the pom-pom, the beard, and the mustache. Actually, no, just the pom-pom and the beard, and then we'll have to do the nose before we do the mustache. Make sure your hands are clean again. The surface is clean. Okay, so we're going to roll out this white fondant. And again, we're going to use the same circle cutter. This is to make sure that the width is the same for the cookie, so we don't have to guess. Again, my fondant's rolled pretty thin. Can you use regular frosting on top of the fondant? I think I read the full question, I'm not sure. Yes. You can use regular frosting on top of the fondant to make any extra fine details. Like you could even use royal icing on top of it. I wouldn't recommend doing a lot because fondant is already sweet because it is a frosting on its own. But for extra detail, yes. Okay, so for this part now, I was just cleaning up the edges, but now we're going to use the circle cutter again, and we're going to overlay it over this circle. And I'm just going to move the circle cutter up about a quarter way from the bottom, and we're going to cut out like a crescent U shape. And this is going to be the beard. So I'm going to press down, pull away, And we have this crescent shape. And I see my cutter isn't that sharp, so I'm seeing that there's still some extra fraying going on. So I'm just going to take my knife and clean up my edges.
What kind of surface is the best to work on with fondant?
The best surface is a silicone mat, or like a baking mat. Okay, so this is the beard. And we're going to line this up with the bottom half of the cookie. So right now, I know I didn't put water down yet. I'm just making sure that mine lines up correctly and to make sure I don't have to trim off anything. Okay, so mine lines up pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is take a little bit of water. I'm actually just gonna brush it straight onto the peach. And I'm going to layer that back down. It's important not to manipulate the fondant too much once it's been out and rolled thin, because again, it is starting to dry. So that's why I didn't pick it up again. I kind of just lifted up the edges to brush the water down. Okay, so next we'll do the pom-pom. So for the pom-pom, that's pretty simple. We're just going to take a ball of white fondant. The size is going to depend on the size of your cookie, but you can always eyeball it and just place it on and say, okay, that looks good. I'm going to press that down. And again, we're going to do the same fuzzy texture so that it matches the fluffy white part of the hat. So we're going to take the toothpick, the sharp end, and just begin poking it quickly around, and you'll get that texture. I'm also kind of holding it down with my finger to make sure that it stays on and doesn't fall off, because we just did put this on here. You can get around the sides. I'm gonna pick this up so you guys can see the texture. Okay, so that's done. And then next we'll move on to the nose. And the nose is really simple too. We're just going to take a small ball of the peach fondant and then actually roll it into kind of like an oval or like an egg shape. So it looks like this. And we're going to place that in the center top edge of the beard. Place it there, and then underneath we'll do the mustache. For the mustache, we'll work with the white again. And we're just going to take 2 small balls of white fondant. Make sure they're pretty equal in size. Like this. I'm going to put my extra white fondant away. All right, so now that we have this, we're going to form these into like a cone shape. So I'm just going to taper one end until it forms kind of like a cone shape like this. Do that to the other one as well. And then what I'm going to do is just going to take my pointer finger and lightly press down to make it flat. So now it kind of looks like a teardrop shape. And then you can manipulate the edges a little bit to give them a little curl. So that's one. We'll do it to the other side. I'm just going to make sure that's that, and then we're going to flatten it. I'm going to put it down here just to make sure that my sizes are right. And then you can curl the edge a little bit. And then you're going to just attach them underneath the nose. Okay. So now the mustache is attached, and then we'll just begin with the face. I mean, the eyes and the little eyebrows. Those are really simple too. Okay, so for that, we will need a little bit of our black fondant. I'm just going to whiten the surface a little bit. I think cookies are the best part of Christmas time. I don't know about you guys, but I love making an assortment of all kinds of cookies. And these ones are really extravagant. The fondant really takes them to the next level. So all I need for the eyes is a really small amount, like 2 little specks of black fondant. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll them into 2 small balls, that small, and I'm going to place them where I want them to be on the face. And from there, I'm actually going to press down with my pointer finger to create a circle. Mine aren't really sticking that much, so I'm going to put a little bit of water, but again, I'm dabbing the water off of my brush before doing so because I really need the smallest amount just so that it sticks. Okay. So now it sticks. So I'm just pressing down lightly with my pointer finger to turn that little ball into a circle. Mine just don't want to stick. Okay, so now the other one, I'm going to just do a little water, press that one down as well. So it look like that. And then we'll add 2 little white specks to the eyes and 2 little eyebrows. And really that's just using 2 really small amounts of white and forming them into really little logs. Since we were just working with black, I'm just going to give my hands a quick little wipe to make sure that there's no residue on there. And then of course I'm going to dry them before picking up the fondant again. If you're working with colors, it also helps to work with gloves. This way you can just interchange your gloves as you're working as well. Okay, so the little specks on the eyes, I'm taking the tiniest amount of white fondant and I'm just going to dab that on there.
Do you use a special kind of brush or any regular paint brush will do?
I would recommend getting a food safe paintbrush. Like I know that they probably sell them in Michael's. And they probably sell different sizes too. So if you're working with a large piece of fondant, you can use a larger bristled brush. And if you're working with smaller details, you obviously will want to use a finer tip brush. Okay, so for the eyebrows, what I'm doing is I'm taking a really small amount of white fondant. I'm creating the tiniest little log, and that's going to be the eyebrows. And you'll just stick those right on, right above the eyes. I don't want to stick again, so I'm going to take a small amount of water. Okay. All right, and our Santa face is done. It's really cute. So we'll put this to the side. Next, we will work on okay, let's do the elf next, because that's probably just as time consuming. And we're going to use a lot of the same techniques here. So first we're going to take out our peach. I still have some from before that's already kneaded. So I'll take that out and we'll give this a roll. It's really nice that these colors are already pre-made too, so that takes a lot of the work out of the way. And if you wanted to, you could pre-cover all of your cookies and then work on the details the next day. You don't have to do everything in one shot. So I'm just rolling out the peach fondant, about the same thickness as all the others. And we're going to cut out a circle, press down, give it a twist. Put your extra fondant away. Okay, so I'm going to just lightly brush the back of the fondant with some water. Place it on the cookie, lightly press down because I don't want to spread the fondant anymore or get any of the imprints of the texture from underneath the cookie. Okay, so next we'll be using green, and we're going to be using the same exact techniques here that we used for the Santa. So we got a small amount. And then we'll just have to knead this a little bit. I want to know what your guys' favorite Christmas desserts are. So put that in the comments as I'm kneading this. My favorite is a icebox cake that we make. It's actually like chocolate wafers, and then you make homemade whipped cream and you place it on top of the layers, and then you stack them and you let it set overnight, and it's delicious. It's like a cookies and cream.
Kathy says anything with coconut.
Oh, I love coconut too. That's good.
Cookies and hot chocolate with marshmallows.
That's a classic. Love that. What's your favorite cookie?
Gingerbread cookies.
Ooh.
We got red
Festive.
velvet cheesecake, chocolate chip cookies.
Yum. I mean, Christmas time is all for the cookies. That's why it's the best. Okay, so I have my circle cutter cut out. I use my circle cutter to cut a circle, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut about a quarter way down horizontally to get the top of the hat. Peanut butter blossoms, yum. I am going to save this other half just like we did earlier. So I'm going to put that back in my bag carefully.
When the fondant dries, will it be hard or chewy?
So out of the bag, the fondant is definitely chewier because it's soft. So once it does set and start to harden, it's not like rock hard. I like to describe it kind of as how a sprinkle would be. So it's a little crunchy on the outside, but it's still soft inside. So it's definitely a different eating experience once the fondant is set. Okay, so for this part, I have my red out, and we're going to do the fuzzy part of the elf's hat. So again, I'm going to roll it out, cut a circle. Now that I have my circle cut out, I'm going to do a horizontal cut in the middle to get a long rectangle, the length of the circle. Again, this is probably about like an inch wide, the rectangle. So all that extra, I'm going to put back away. So now I'm going to use some water to attach it. Again, we're going to make it so it's halfway onto the peach fondant and halfway onto the green fondant. And now it's time to make that fun fuzzy texture again. So you're just going to press down quickly with your toothpick. Again, you could definitely get this texture if you happen to have like a knit mold or an impression mat that had the knit texture as well. This part's fun because it doesn't have to be perfect.
On average, Sarah, how long does it take for you to decorate cookies when you're not showing us step by step?
It depends, because if I'm being like a really perfectionist that day, then it could take me a long time. But the more you do something, the faster you get at it. So I would say one of these cookies would probably take me about 10 minutes if I'm fully concentrated in doing it, just to decorate. But like I said, you can do things in portions. So you could cover this full cookie, like have the base of the cookie covered and then go back another day and finish with the details. But with cookies like this, with all the detail, if you're selling these, you can sell them for a lot more money because of all the time and effort and how beautiful they look. Okay, so now that we're done with that red edge, I'm going to do the same type of cut on this other half of the green circle. And I'm going to attach that. Okay, so next for this part, I'm actually going to show you guys how to make the elf's hair, which is pretty simple. So we'll need the dark brown fondant for that. This fondant tastes like dark chocolate. All the colors taste like vanilla. I could eat this dark brown chocolate by the bar because it tastes like fudge. It's so delicious. So I'm going to take out enough of this so that I can roll it out and cut out a circle just so I can get the length like I did the others, even though we're really only going to be using a really small amount. Okay, again, shut this. This fondant smells so good. It smells like a chocolate bar. Okay, now I'm going to roll this out. We're going to cut the circle. I need a little bit of cornstarch. So with the darker colors, you might notice that your cornstarch will show up, but you can just take your finger and brush that away. So for this, we really want a really skinny rectangle for the hair because it's really just going to take up a small portion of the face. So I am going to go in the middle of the circle because that's where the hair is going to be placed on the cookie. And I'm going to do a horizontal cut. And then I'm going to do another horizontal cut, but not too thick. This is probably like 1/4 of an inch wide. And we'll place it on the cookie and we'll see if we have to go even thinner, but I think this is good. Put that to the side. Clean up the edges a little bit. So I just want to make sure this is going to fit okay. Get up, put it here. It's actually a little longer, so I'm going to just cut some of the sides off. And then for the spiky hair effect, we're just going to cut small little triangles out of one edge of the rectangle. And then in order to show you guys the reindeer, I might not finish the full elf face because it does use a lot of the same techniques that we use for the Santa. So I'm just going to show you guys the hair and then move on to the reindeer, if that's okay. If you guys want to know something specific on any of these cookies here, please ask away in the questions and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay, so to attach the hair, we're doing this right below the red fuzzy part of the hat. I'm just going to do a light little strip of water there. And then we can attach the hair. Okay, so then the next steps on this cookie, we would do the same pom-pom effect. So you would roll a circle of the red fondant and then do the same effect with the toothpick. For the elf ears, you would do the same thing that we did for the mustache, but in a smaller form and thinner. So you would roll it into a ball, form it into a cone shape, and then lightly press down with your finger to create that teardrop shape. And then again, for the eyes, you'll just roll 2 small black balls of the black fondant and press them down to create circles, add your little white specks, a little circle for the nose, and then a really skinny log for the mouth. So here's the finished elf cookie, what it will look like at the end. Again, if you guys have any questions, even for the bodies of these guys, let me know. Next, we're going to move into the Rudolph. So we're going to use the chocolate for this. I like to contrast the colors a little bit because the brown is a darker brown. I'm going to mix it with equal parts white fondant to lighten it up a little bit to have some contrast on the face. So I'll take the extra dark brown fondant that I had just from before from doing the hair. And then I'm going to roll up an equal amount of white fondant and we're going to mix it. Because I am going to be mixing these colors, I'm not wiping my hands in between because they're going to be combined anyway. But I do want to make sure that I have the same amount. So I'm just going to roll a ball. If you had a food scale, you can measure gram to gram to make sure that it's the same, but you can also eyeball it. We're just making a light brown. So I'm just going to combine these 2 together and start kneading them all the way until you get a lighter shade of brown. That's a really, this is a really cool part about Satin Fondant as well, is because they have all these colors already pre-made. If you want a unique color, they have color mix guides on the website and on social media, and you can just mix different parts of the classic colors to create unique shades. You can also do that with a shimmer fondant as well. Okay, so now I have a lighter brown. So you can see this is the classic dark brown, and then this is the lighter brown. So you get some contrast. So we're going to actually cover the full cookie with this lighter brown.
Is there a sugar-free fondant?
Satin Ice doesn't make a sugar-free fondant. I'm not sure if there are any on the market. Okay, so I rolled out this lighter brown. I'm going to cut a circle like we did with all the others. We'll attach it to the cookie. Press down lightly to adhere it. And then next we're gonna work on the fur part of the reindeer. So for that, we're going to use the brown fondant straight up from the package. Make sure you save your lighter brown because we will be going back to that for the mouth and for the inside of the ears. Again, take off a small portion of the dark brown. Give that a knead. So now we're just going to roll this out. We're going to use both the circle cutter and the heart cutter for this part. Okay. So I'm going to cut out the circle. Put the rest of this brown to the side. And then I'm going to use my heart cutter. And so if I have the heart cutter over the circle, we're going to shift it down about a quarter way. And we're going to make a cut. And this is going to give us that shape that frames the head. And you're going to have these extra pieces right here. Just give those a trim. And then we're going to adhere this to the top of the cookie. So I'm just going to brush a little bit of water directly on there. Press that down. And then of course, this is the first, so we are going to give it that furry texture again. So just take your toothpick. Make sure it's on the cookie good. Just go all around this top portion to create that fur effect. So you're just like quickly poking the fondant all the way around to get that cool texture. Okay, so next, while we have the brown out, some extra from here, we will make the ears. So for the ears, we're going to use the same exact technique that we did for the mustache and that you would have used for the elf ears. So we're just going to roll 2 small balls of the brown fondant, form them into cones and then press down and make them flat so they look like teardrop shapes. And then for extra, I just took some of the lighter brown and to give it extra detail, I just put like a little patch of the lighter brown in there. So I rolled a ball, placed it down, and then used my finger to spread it on the inside of the ear. So then we'll attach this at the base of each side of the fur, on each side of the head. And then we're gonna make the antlers, and that's fun because it's made out of the Shimmer fondant. This is the Shimmer fondant. I'm using gold. I'll try to show you the shimmer on the camera. So we're just gonna give this a quick knead. I don't know if you could see the shimmer. Hold on. Once I get it soft. This is the coolest fondant because it has the shimmer straight up in it, and you can mix it with anything and get shimmer in any shade. You don't even have to use any luster dust. So we're not using a lot of this. We're just going to use a small amount to make. We're going to need 6 balls of the gold shimmer. My hands are getting sticky. So I like to keep a little cornstarch on the side just to dip my fingers in there if I need to wipe it on my hands. Okay, so we have 6 balls of the gold shimmer fondant around the same size. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually form these into logs. You can taper one end so that one end is a little bit pointier. So they look like the antlers. And then you're going to attach them as you have them ready. Some can be longer than others. You can give them a little bit of movement. So once you have the antlers, they'll look like this. It's just 3 like skinny logs that are tapered at one end, attached to one another. And then you can attach it to the top of the head. So I'll go ahead and do the other one quickly. I've seen other techniques for antlers too. You can actually use like a snowflake cutter and cut off one of the ends of the snowflake to use as an antler. So that's another way you can save time. There's tons of hacks for using different cutters for different techniques. Okay, so I have these guys. So I'm just going to give them like a little bit of movement and then attach them as well. I love the gold antlers. I think it gives it like a really cool touch. So then next we'll do the mouth. And for the mouth, we are going to use the lighter brown so it matches. And for that, we're just going to take a small amount, roll it into a ball, then form it into like an egg shape. Then again, lightly press down with your pointer finger to create an oval. And then attach this on the bottom half of the face. And then you can use your knife to just give it like a little smile. I put mine on the side, so it's kind of like a little grin. You could do it in the middle, wherever you want. And then of course, we need some red for the nose. So I'm just rolling a small ball of the red and attaching that right on top. And then we'll do the eyes really quick. So we are going to be moving to the white for the eyes. So again, I'm just going to make sure my hands are clean since we were just working with brown and red. Lindsay, is it okay if I just go 5 minutes over 5 o'clock?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So right now I'm just cleaning up my surface to make sure there's no extra colors on the surface. And we'll work with our white. So I have some sitting out here. And we're just going to roll 2 smaller balls of the white. This is my favorite technique to do for eyes because it makes it a lot easier. So what we're going to do is roll 2 smaller balls. I'm going to put a small amount of water where I want to put the eyes on the cookie. And I'm going to attach the white balls to the cookie, and I'm going to press down with my pointer finger to create the circle. So like if I were to do this on the surface and then transfer it, it will be really hard because they're such small pieces, and then the circle might not look like a circle anymore, and then you have to redo it. And you don't need a small circle cutter if you do it this way. So next we're going to layer in the black. So we're going to do the same technique. We're just going to use a smaller amount than you did for the white. So you'll roll 2 small balls of the black fondant. Smaller. Place those in the middle on top of the white. And then begin to press down and like spread it out a little bit with your pointer finger. It's just a really easy way to layer the eyes. And then I like to add little white specks. And then we'll take some of the darker brown for the eyebrows, and we'll do the same technique as we did for the Santa. So it's just 2 small, really small logs. And it gives it a really cute expression. Go. All right, we got our reindeers done. So you could do these cookies on their own just with the faces and the heads, but it's also a really cute idea, like a really cute gift idea to put in a box to have the set to do the head and the body. And again, for these bodies, you'll end up using the same techniques as we use, especially with like the fur, just cutting simple shapes and layering them on top. So that's it for today's class. If you guys have any more questions, you can quickly put them in, or if I missed any.
We had a question about how long before Christmas can you make these, and how would you store them since it's a bit labor intensive?
So I would recommend you can even bake. Okay, so if you wanted to bake your sugar cookies in advance, or if you wanted to, you can buy them store-bought, which is a lot easier. But if you wanted to bake them, you can bake them now and then put them in the freezer. So you have that covered. And then it really depends on the shelf life of your cookies. So once you take your cookies out at room temperature, I'm sure they would sugar cookies have a longer shelf life. I think you could probably leave them in a stored container for about a week. So you could start probably about a week in advance, because once the fondant will be fine. And like I said, you can work in layers. So you can first do the base, let that set, keep them in an airtight container. I wouldn't layer them too much. I would put like a parchment down before you did the details when storing them on top of each other so that no crumbs get on top or anything like that. But other than that, do you have to do one cookie at a time? No, you do not have to do one cookie at a time. You could cover, like, for example, if you were doing the Santa, you could cover a bunch of the cookies with your peach fondant, put them to the side, come back to them another day, and then do the rest of the details. All right. That's it for today's class, guys. I appreciate you joining me and I look forward to the next class. My next class is in January and it's for Valentine's Day and we'll be doing buttercream flowers. So that's going to be really fun. I hope you guys join me for that. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you again for joining and have a great night. Bye.